James Bond, Mark.
Ding,
Everyone,
ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
everyone
Who's that
loves.
guy? I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah, everyone loves Bond, don't they? Let's be honest, they do.
I think in certain parts of their life they do. I mean, I'm pretty much past Bond these days, but
I would say that it's still probably the only film that I would want to go and see in a cinema.
really, I
Yeah,
haven't seen the last few.
yeah.
'cause I
No,
just
I've seen
haven't
them
been
all in
bothered with them.
cinemas. Okay, but anything else, I'm not fussed. I always think I've got to go and see Bond in the cinema. It's almost tradition now. Got to go to the cinema. It's James Bond.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, and I don't mean this as a funny dig or laugh or anything. It's that because there is about 10 or so years between us, isn't there? So
Yeah.
do you reckon it's something to do with that? Do you reckon?
No, I don't.
Because Bond, when I was growing up, Bond wasn't that popular really. There was a big break between the Dalton years, so he only did 2, didn't he? And then you had it kind of revamped with Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah,
there's a big gap, wasn't there, between
yeah.
there? So Bond really wasn't.
I guess, yeah.
And
but
looking back on some of those Roger Moore ones,
yeah,
one where he rustles up a quiche. I mean, come on.
Okay, so Bond dates very easily. Bond is very
I'm afraid so.
if you think about it, each Bond film is very much of its time.
Yeah.
I think the recent Daniel Craig ones, I think will stand the test of time better. I think the Sean Connery 60s ones, to a certain extent, people sort of see that, yes, look, I know this is old, but it's still relevant. Once you got to the 70s and the 80s, I think it's a bit dodgy ground there, really.
Well, I think there's dodgy ground through all of them. If you're casting your modern day view of it, I mean, he is a character that was born in. I mean, I don't know when did Fleming write these? I can't remember. I don't even know. Was it? I'm guessing before the 60s.
I reckon it's probably. I would have said 50s.
Yeah,
I would have said
something like
50s.
that.
Yeah,
So,
late 50s probably.
Actually, some of the Connery stuff is quite, on the edge when his relationship with women. I don't think.
Yeah.
It's almost dare I say it, quite rapey in places. It's uncomfortable. But there is an iconic. I mean, the Connery Bond is probably the most iconic out of all of them, despite that.
Yeah.
The whole Goldfinger thing and no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. All this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Blofeld and the cat, and
Yeah.
it's But I mean, if you really look. I mean, I guess when they show them on TV now, they probably cut certain scenes out because I don't really think it's suitable for modern day viewing. Because people will take offense by it. And actually,
probably.
With some of those scenes, I can see why.
And
whereas the Craig ones, I guess, have that in mind when they're made.
They do, yeah. Now, so the reason why I sort of talk about this is because I was looking through some stuff online recently. It's going back a little while ago, and I came across some Bond images, and I thought to myself, "Oh, that looks really cool," And there were pictures of Daniel Craig, and as I scrolled through the article, there was one of George Lazenby, and he was sitting by a pool, and he was sitting on a sunbed in his trunks, and and behind him is a woman standing in a bikini on a phone, right? And but shot in black and white. And what struck me was how good and timeless these images actually are, which is very different from the films. Okay, the films date, but the photos have far more of an iconic, timeless feel about them. There's something really magical about those photos. Shot.
Yeah, but is that because of, especially with the Connery, the 60s stuff, basically, is what we're talking about, isn't it?
Well, the thing is there's Roger Moore. I mean, a lot of these pictures were shot by a photographer, Terry O'Neill, and he, and he's best known as one of the guys who shot so much in the 60s. Him and David Bailey were, at the forefront, weren't they, of shooting celebrities and everything else that was going on around there. But he captured a lot of the photography, a lot of the Bond characters from the 60s and the 70s, with Live and Let Die with Roger Moore, George Lazenby from Russia, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, I think it was.
Well, yeah, it was the Mill Tray Man, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then you've got, Live and Let Die with Roger Moore, and it came across some contact sheets of the classic of Roger Moore in his black polo neck jumper, holding that little gun,
Walter
right?
PPK.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just sort of that 3/4 look, and then the look with his eyes, that sultry look with his just lifting his eyes up, and his eyebrow goes up, and holding the gun. And there's a whole series of contact sheets that you can look at, and those pictures really stand the test of time. Yes, we know they're old, but there's a great picture of Sean Connery, and he's just sitting on the set of Diamonds Are Forever. And what he's doing is he's just holding a camera, and he's looking at the photographer through the camera that he's holding. And just the camera just looks timeless. The camera looks retro. It looks really cool. Everything about the images just looks just timeless compared to the films.
Well, if I may, I don't think they are timeless. I think they're actually of a time. From what I think. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we're looking at some of them now. Do you not look at that and think it? Because I don't think they are timeless. I think that is showing it a certain time. Don't get me wrong. They're iconic, yes,
but if you look at, we're looking at a picture of Sean Connery sat on a sheriff's motorbike, and he's got black suit, black tie, white shirt. Take the bike away, and he could be there today, right, in a very classic style.
I don't know.
There he is in his white, in his white tux, black bow tie. There's just something about the image. I'm comparing it to the film, Mark. I'm sort of saying that the stills seem to stand the test of time better.
Well, I think that's different. They do stand the test of time, but I wouldn't necessarily say they're timeless. They stand the test of time because they are very classic. This is like classic Hollywood stuff. That it's almost like a genre in its own right. If you were to take a shot like this today, it would be considered, you're taking something in the classic Hollywood feel. I mean, we were talking about that in the story earlier with the photographer with the iPhone. He likes the golden age of Hollywood, and that is all that black and white stuff, and the sort of the contrast and all that kind of thing. I think I feel in some respects, I don't know if this is the same all around the world, but with us, the British, we have this very rose-tinted version of the 60s. And I think Bond does come from that. We look at the Connery Bond. It was very. I mean, it looks very glamorous. We're looking at this picture here. So
I can imagine shooting that with a groom at a wedding.
Yeah, but there was a certain glamour to this that is very 60s Bond. And it's not just 60s Bond; it's also Hollywood at that time. This could be Bogart. This could be anybody for me. The fact that it's Bond kind of puts it in that place because we know who he is. And actually, I think the Roger Moore ones do look good, but they're not as iconic as the Connery ones because it doesn't have that 60s feel.
No, yeah.
And we do, as I say, us Brits, we love banging on about the swinging 60s. I certainly wasn't around at that time, so I don't really have any connection to it. But it's Bond, it's the Beatles, it's the Stones, it's even a couple of gangsters. Look glamorous. The Craze. Even they look glamorous, and they were arseholes, basically. Excuse my French. But I hope
there's no comeback over that.
Yes,
I'm going to disassociate myself from that comment completely, guys.
Maybe. But you know what I mean. They beat up a lot of people. We've all seen the movies. I would be scared to have them in my neighbourhood. And the mods kicked the hell out of rockers and vice versa. There was a lot of violence. But we tend to skip over all of that. And it's imagery like this that kind of that kind of helps us skip over that.
Mm.
I mean, we're looking at some of the Roger Moore Bond ones here is Live and Let Die, which I actually think is his most iconic Bond film.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
which helps with Paul McCartney doing the soundtrack, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have this fixation of Bond as a lot of people do, to be honest. When I was a kid, I kind of liked the cars and stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah. But there's a coolness about it that you can't deny. I mean, the cars, say for example, the picture that the camera that Sean Connery's just sitting there holding was a camera of the time, obviously. But now when you look at that camera now, it's probably a Nikon F1 or something, Nikon F or something, whatever it is, right? Looks you know, it just it looks cool, and I think that's what it is. But you're right. I think you're exactly right in what you say. That it is romanticized. You know, that whole period. But I guess that was also groundbreaking within the photography. That's another reason why that stuff looks cool.
35mm was quite new, wasn't it? I mean, wasn't it that there's an advert around this time? I think it's for Pentax,
right?
And it was David Bailey was a guest at a wedding, and there was a wedding photographer.
Olympus Trip 35.
The Olympus Trip. That's
I remember that advert.
Yeah, and so 35mm was quite new.
Yeah.
And it had basically the synopsis of this advert, if you haven't seen it, is this old school wedding photographer who's looking quite old in the tooth, scoffing at David Bailey for having this 35mm camera. Well, we all use 35mm cameras. In fact, technically we still do. It's just the digital versions. And that was a new invention, wasn't it? The Olympus, was it the actual trip or was it the OM?
It was a trip. It was Olympus Trip.
It was the trip, was it?
Yeah.
So 35mm was kind of new and kind of cool as well. You get 36 shots and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, you got Bond with a really good SLR, and it's all glamour, it's all expensive stuff. It's Aston Martins, it's Can.
It's everything that looks cool. It's everything that's branded cool, isn't it? So
pretty much.
Good stuff.
So
yeah. Okay, I just wanted to touch on that. I think
it's interesting.
About comparing the films to the stills, and that's really what it was. So
there is some fantastic work, and I think actually that's the real thing about it for me was photographers could break out of using things like 5.4 and medium format, and actually then had this new invention, which was the 35mm film. I can't remember how new it is. I think did it come out in the 60s? 35mm was it? Probably
it did. Yeah, 60s.
They may have used them in the war. I don't know. But it's relatively new in comparison. It's the same as. It's kind of weird. This episode has taken a good full circle now. We were talking about iPhones.
Actually,
the phone pictures phone now is probably the equivalent of what the 35mm was back then when people were just using medium and large format cameras. It's that new invention that makes photography more accessible to people. And that's exactly what the phone's done. It's made, and digital photography, digital cameras, and then the phone. It's made photography more accessible to people who wouldn't necessarily get into it. And that's what 35mm did, and that's what iPhones are doing now. So and I guess that's why you get a lot more of these photos and things like that.
Good stuff. I wonder, just to finish off, Mark, whether in 20, 30, 40 years someone's going to say, God, doesn't that iPhone 12 Max look really cool?
No. You see the big difference, I guess.
Whereas a Nikon F does.
Yeah, but the Nikon F does, because it's kind of gone. So you had your large and your medium formats that did a certain amount of shots. Was it 15 on a 645, 12 on an SQ, and you get 2 on a 5.4. So images, and then you have like 24 and 36 on 35mm, and now it's thousands. There's no limit to the amount of photographs you can take. So it's oversaturated now for it to have that same sort of feeling, I think, as what you have with 35mm. Next, I guess the next one it'll be just video, and you can just take stills off video. I think that'll be the next.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, there'll be exactly.
Hopefully I've retired by then.